Epiphone decided to give Oxblood the old inspired by Gibson custom shop treatment. Let's check it out. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Jeff Beck has inspired many, so I was pretty shocked when I saw Epiphone come out with this, because we had just recently lost him, and his original guitar was auctioned off and sold for $1.4 million. And let's face it, even the custom shop reissues done up in 2009 are out of reach by many. So that's where Epiphone steps in to save the day, right? I will say, I do like this a lot better in person than I was seeing in stock photos. It actually is a gloss finish. It looked super dulled down in some of those photos, but I'd say this is actually really nice. Being inspired by Gibson Custom Shop, that means you get the Gibson headstock, although still with the Epiphone logo. It's still made in China, but you get a one-piece neck now, so no scarf joins or additional layers for a heel. They outfit them with real Gibson humbuckers in here, so that'll be exciting to see. Over on the Workbench segment, we also get the true rosewood fretboard on these, as well as the added bonus of real mother-of-pearl inlays. Not that the original ever had that, though. But if you're not familiar with the story of Jeff Beck's original Oxblood, you might be thinking this thing looks a little bit weird. Humbuckers with a wrap tail? What is the story here? Jeff Beck, among many of other artists, got his big start during his time with the Yardbirds. But from there he forms the Jeff Beck Group, among a few other solo projects, and around late 1972 he purchases this Les Paul that was modified by Strings and Things. Now, it started life as a 54 gold top. However, the owner at that time did not like the P90 pickups and wasn't in love with the finish. So I believe that shop did all those modifications there, and then when the guy came to pick it up, he's like, "This thing is awful. I don't want it." It's kind of a interesting chocolate brown finish that we now call Oxblood. Essentially, it's a really deep reddish brown if you get it in the light. However, in most situations, it just looks black. But in the Gibson circle, similar to how when anybody sees an aged white Les Paul Custom, they instantly think of Randy Rhoads. When you talk about Oxblood, I don't care what model, Jeff Beck's name shows up. And that's because this guitar was prominently featured as album artwork on Blow by Blow. So even though this was only his primary guitar for a few years, I think that helped solidify it as something interesting that people can associate with Beck. And as far as his playing skills, I don't need to say anything there. Go ahead and check him out. He was a well-loved and respected musician for a reason, but he passed away January 10th of 2023. So that's why we saw the auctioning of his goods, and now inevitably another run from the Gibson family of brands. So these are, brace yourselves, $1,299. So $1,300. However, as I told you before, it's the Inspired by Gibson custom shop. You're going to pay a premium to have that headstock and the upgraded pickup stock. However, I really like how they went a little bit above and beyond on this release because A, you get a case, which is nice. Usually the Inspired by Gibson custom shops do, but this is stylized after the old custom shop style cases. So we've got our Epiphone and Gibson custom branding here. A total of 4 latches, 3 on the front, 1 on the back. But inside our compartment, this is what I'm happy about. Generally, Epiphones of any price range don't come with a strap, but this one comes with a vintage style one that's branded Epiphone all the way up here at the top. It's stylized off of one that he used, so I thought that was a nice little bonus addition. Otherwise, it's just your usual hang tags here as far as our Gibson stickers and warranty information. Some setup tools and case key. And for historical preservation, here's the original box tag and price hang tag. But first impressions, this actually exceeded my set expectations. However, if you don't necessarily care about Jeff Beck, but you love the specs of this, but not the colorations, there was an Epiphone inspired by Gibson custom shop model before this one. It's the Tak Matsumoto. That's the double gold all over. Now that one utilizes the Birchbucker pickups versus the custom buckers of today, and they're covered, but it's still a wrap tail humbucker standard. You can check out that review right here. But to learn more about this one, let's go ahead and throw it on over to the Workbench to take a look at its parts and specs. Let's go ahead and begin with our pickups. We've got the cream rings on the outside, but they are uncovered, but they are indeed Gibson Custom Shop custom buckers. These things are pretty pricey by themselves, so that makes up a lot of the premium to this guitar. Now that said, the uncovered version isn't worth as much as the covered, but it's not by too much. I only bring that up because hey, say you buy this and you decide, you know what, this pickup set isn't my favorite, I want to try something completely different, you at least have that option of selling these on and buying something quite nice. The target demographic for these is somebody who already wants a fully upgraded Les Paul from the Epiphone lineup and prefers to have that open book headstock shape. But what I found in the pickup cavities was actually kind of surprising. It looks like for Epiphone to recreate this finish, they primarily use purple, because that's pretty much the only finish you see inside of the cavities, which I suppose is a good roundabout way to tell you what this looks like in person. It is a very deep, dark eggplant color when you get it under really bright lights. But do I think they did a bad job of recreating the Oxblood finish? No, I mean, as compared to the auction photos, I think they did a pretty fantastic job. But it's important to note that this is called a vintage gloss finish. So it's not a full gloss. They haven't like taken it to the final steps. And I believe due to that, you can actually see a lot of orange peeling within the finish. So if you're not jiving with that, maybe pass on this. However, I don't feel any of that. This still feels velvety smooth. But outside of the purple finish, you can see some of the other markings as well as our long neck tenon. That's something else that these guys have over regular Epiphones. And now in our bridge pickup cavity, we can see more of the same. And then inside here, we have our QR code and model name, Les Paul Standard 54 Ox. If you doubted the spec sheet that these had a maple top, you can actually see that right here in the bridge pickup cavity where it joins onto our mahogany body. You can also see that in the neck pickup cavity. It's just a little bit covered over in paint. As far as what kind of wrap tailpiece they're utilizing on this, it is not your standard Epiphone one. This is the same one that the Gibson custom shop uses today. I'm not sure when they started to do this little G branding, but I did notice it recently, so that helps verify that. So even if you wanted to upgrade this to an intonatable wrap tail, you don't necessarily need the original Beck look. This setup has a little bit of value within it. As far as our controls, basic stuff here. 2 volumes, 2 tones, neck pickup, bridge pickup. And they do have the correct golden speed knobs with thumb bleeders that tell you what position you are on each knob. And then if you were looking at the very, very poor fit of our pick guard earlier, that's actually a Beck spec. Once again, take a look at a photo of the original and you can see that's exactly there too. It would have been cool had they had also outfitted these with the Fender bullet strings, but I get why they don't. A, they're using a main competitor's product, and B, then they also would have had to have shaved away some of our pickup ring. A few other things to note though. The pick guard itself is like obnoxiously chunky. You definitely notice that when you take it off, but I suppose that's a good thing. And let's just say this finish shows fingerprints and the slightest touches of anything, even with clean hands. So it's going to end up looking like his dusty original really quick. It wipes away fairly easily. However, it does seem to scratch easily. I noticed a few of those just straight out of the box. But that's more of a dark finish guitar. You kind of have to learn to live with that type of thing. It does indeed have a decent top carve though. The only other thing I noticed to point out were some light scratches to the outside of my bridge humbucker. I mean, I would imagine these got shipped around from country to country, finally installed and put in the guitar. It makes sense that it could happen. But we'll just take one more second to appreciate the color in case you're still not 100% convinced or need some more shots of it. It's a really nice dark finish. Don't let that purple thing turn you off like this is dark purple. To me, it really does look like they nailed it. It's just fun to learn how they did it. But outside of our maple top and mahogany body, we've got that one-piece mahogany neck with, again, our true rosewood fretboard. The early IBGCs still had the laurel, so that's why I'm making a point to drive that home that, yeah, we've got rosewood on here now, and we already talked about the pure mother-of-pearl inlays. It's just a fancy thing that they've been doing on this series. They know it's not error correct, but hey, it's another little bragging feature for these. But neck spec-wise, a little over 1.71 inches, increasing to about 2.08 by the 12th. Now this part I'm confused by. First fret neck depth 0.92. Oh my, nearly 1.1 at the 12th. What? That's the biggest neck we've ever measured on the show. At least I'm pretty sure by the 12th fret. Now, to be fair, we're almost up on the heel, but this is a ridiculously big neck. However, the auction for his original guitar stated his neck was slimmed down. That doesn't seem to match. However, to be fair, I've never had the guitar in person. Maybe his idea of slimming it down was he had a really crazy neck or something. Just please, please, please keep that in mind, because that is going to be a make it or break it spec for some people. This is a chunky neck. There's that neck profile at the 1st fret and the 12th fret. You can see how it's like a normal C here, but then it gets like really rounded and those shoulders sculpt away very quickly. It's a big feeling neck. Moving on to the face of the headstock, they did a few throwbacks here, such as a completely blank truss rod cover. The backside is a little less shiny if you're confused which way goes up. It's still your standard import style truss rod, but we've got that same vintage gloss finish up here with a tinted over Epiphone mother of pearl logo. And once again, that Gibson headstock shape with the Schaller tips on the tuners a la his. All strung back up now, it still captures the regular 24 3/4 inch scale with 12-inch fretboard radius. And it looks like the bridge is about in the correct location. However, remember, we're going after a look. There's no lightning bar to help the intonation. You can rock it back and forth to get as close as possible. I will say straight out of the box, it does not have perfect intonation. It would need a little bit of setup work. Moving on to the backside. It becomes even more purple when you take those back plates off. It's funny how this thing goes from looking like a dark red to just straight up purple with those off. But looks like we're rocking 500K CTS pots. You've got some sort of a large yellow capacitor in here. And I do want to make a mention of our output jack. They got the correct one for his guitar, the metal one, but this is really stiff, which could be a good or a bad thing. And then we have kind of our standard strap button in our usual locations. And here's what our toggle switch is looking like. The back plate cover is cream to match his original. And as far as the finish back here, we see more of the same of what we saw on the front. A little bit of orange peel, some fingerprints, but it's a nice smooth finish. Looks like we do have thin binding in the cutaway, but it covers over the exposed wood. And we'll just take a second to appreciate the edges. And now the bass side. Before we get to our just absolutely honking neck, I can't tell you how surprised I am at just how chunky that is. If you've always been looking for an Epiphone with something close to an R7 or R8 baseball bat, that's the model you want. But again, that's a one-piece neck, so headstock and everything all in one piece. But our tuners are actually Grover branded. They just utilize the Schaller tips, very similar to what they do for like the Adam Jones Les Paul Standards and a few other ones. But our serial number dates this one to 2025 into January with the whole double diamond IBGC thing. If you're curious about the weight though, mine is 8 pounds, 13.6 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how this Epi sounds with some custom buckers. First impressions on those tones, the bridge pickup is really hot and attacking. That's going to sound great with distortion. However, it's almost a bit much on certain clean tones. Because if that's your clean tone, that's a bit distorted. So you might opt to either lower that bridge pickup or roll its volume down just a tad. 8.5 is a good match. I'm curious how that affects the middle position though, because I did like that all the way up on 10, because it blends some of the brightness of that with the darkness of the neck. Keep that in mind if you're trying one of these out or if you happen to have purchased it. Yeah, that's exactly what I was expecting out of that one. Rocker certified. Now we'll try that neck pickup. It's got some raunchiness to it. So there we go, the new Epiphone Jeff Beck Oxblood Les Paul. What are my final thoughts on this? If you thought that demo was a little bit short, I did too. Like, I still want to keep playing this thing. Don't interpret that as, Trogly didn't like this guitar. I just felt I got all the tones out of it already. That is a fantastic sounding instrument. Wasn't really expecting anything less with the Custom Shop custom buckers, but definitely don't forget about your volume and tone controls. You can certainly get close to many of the blow-by-blow sounds. I did a little bit of listening to that and took some inspiration from, I think, the first and fifth track or so. I had some fun with this one. Now, if you're candidly asking me, is this worth the $1,300? It's expensive for an Epiphone, but remember, you got it at least $300 in the pickups. So that puts it down to $1,000, which gets you very close to that whole Epiphone Les Paul custom, brand new, or one of the figure top moderns, which I'm a really big fan of. It just comes down to, is it worth it to you to pay a premium to have that Gibson headstock on here and the one-piece neck? I will say the Inspired by Epiphone lineups, they feel different in the hand. I don't know if it's because a lot of these tend to have bigger neck profiles, or it really does come down to the types of wood that they're using for the one-piece construction. They feel different. It's not necessarily just the pickups upgrade. However, these expensive Epiphones are meant for a very specific target demographic. Someone who loves a particular artist and can't afford the custom shop version, or somebody who wants an Epiphone to the highest specs that they are willing to produce. Because comparing this to like a used Les Paul Studio and stuff, that's when things get very tricky. But I would say this is a very nice guitar. So if you're interested in being the next owner of this particular review unit, you can find it for sale on my website at troglysguitarshow.com. Otherwise, I hope this episode helped you make an informed decision whether one of these is right for you or not. For me personally, I really wish I wouldn't have looked in those pickup cavities, because it kind of ruined the guitar for me, because I just see purple now. So don't look in the cavities and you'll be just fine, because It does look good, but now that I know that there's some purple going on here, it just looks like a dark eggplant, which is cool in its own right, though. All right, troglodytes, we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.